My, aren't you glad no one is recording our words when we lose our tempers? Hello, I'm Chuck Swindoll. That's not a tape you or I would want to hear played back, as instructive as it might be. Actually, recording or not, we tend to remember those angry words, don't we? They hit our brain like shrapnel, and they sink in. They also hurt. They replay again and again as we recall the emotions. Sometimes we're haunted by words we spoke in anger, and we would give anything to take them back. Other times, we're amazed that words directed toward us have the power to hurt even years after they were uttered. Let's face it, words have incredible power. Be careful.
Statistics say, whether I believe wholeheartedly on this or not, that a person speaks 11 million words a year. Now, for some of you, I can believe that. Some of you, I believe you could do that in a month. Scripture says that we ought to be aware of the man with many words. Can you imagine if you live 65 years, that's 715 million words in a lifetime? Imagine the magnitude of that many words and the impact of that many words in a lifetime. In the television show Gilmore Girls, there were some roommates and friends, Rory and Paris. They share a secret together. Rory is supposed to keep that secret. But Paris learns that she told someone who told someone else, and who told someone else. And she was deeply hurt. That was the incredible sinking Lorelai's in Gilmore Girls. Often we don't realize the damage and pain a thoughtless comment can create. But God certainly does understand the importance of words that we speak. And Proverbs has some extremely wise words on how we are to use our speech. This is the final message in the series of Proverbs, but I think we could go on all year in the book of Proverbs. But remember one thing, that the book of Proverbs is exactly what it is. It's words full of wisdom. And it's written by the most wise person recorded in Scripture, Solomon. And there is golden nuggets in each chapter that we can apply. I encourage you as when we conclude this series in Proverbs, I encourage every one of you to read every chapter in the book of Proverbs. And as you go through chapter 1, you write down at least 3 golden nuggets in that chapter that sticks to you. Whether that's encouraging to you, or it's actually criticizing you, or it identifies you. But the way you do that is you grab that wisdom, because the Bible is very clear that blessed, happy is the man who holds on to this wisdom, who ties it around their neck as a necklace, and it goes with him wherever he goes. So you're going to be blessed when you adapt by adopting these proverbs. So look at each chapter and try to find, if you can't find 3, okay, at least 2. Okay, if you can't find 2, 1, okay? But go through every chapter, not just the fact of I read through the book of Proverbs, but with an attitude of application and how that might be able to transform your character and transform your speech and transform even your way of thinking. Grab those golden nuggets and write them down. Just go through a whole journey by journaling your study in the book of Proverbs. You will be blessed, I know. So when we look at Proverbs chapter 4, God is going to be imparting his wisdom to his son. The author of Proverbs is addressing the words that we use. For example, he states, put away from you crooked speech and put devious talk from you, and words that are untrue or deceptive or that lead people astray need to be so far removed from us that we have nothing to do with them. Now think about this. He says, my son, give attention to my words. You ever said to your son, listen, hey, listen, you're getting his attention. You want his attention on you. That's what the proverb writer is saying. That's dad in this narrative. So he says, my son, give attention to my words. Have you ever noticed a son who does not like instruction? You ever notice a son who does not like discipline? You ever know a son who knows everything and a son who has no regard to wisdom at all? What is his behavior when you're instructing him? Okay, Dad, whatever. It's not attentive, is it? Body language says a lot. And so you have to draw that attention. Why? Because it's not every day that a child understands the value or the golden nugget of the wisdom that you're imparting to him. And that's why you have to kind of kick a little bit and get his attention so he's paying attention to you, that he might absorb and he might take in some of this wisdom. Why? Because it's going to bless that young man. It's valuable. What you have to say really does matter to his future and to this generation. It matters. And he's saying, son, listen to my words. Incline your ears to my saying. Listen up. Clean the wax out of your ears at least once a year. And he says, do not let them depart from your sight. How many of us, when we hear instruction from our dad, okay, the minute that he shuts, now you heard me, right? You're going to listen, right? Yep, the door shuts and you're like, whatever. He says, listen, keep them in the midst of your heart, for they are life to those who find them, and health to their body. Watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flows the springs of life. Put away from you a deceitful mouth, and put devious speech far from you. Let your eyes look directly ahead, and let your gaze be fixed straight in front of you. Straighten up, boy. Watch the path of your feet, and all your ways will be established. Do not turn to the right nor to the left. Turn your foot from evil. Now, when we see this writing, we don't see that the father says to the son, hey, don't do that. Or, hey, son, you might not want to do that. Matter of fact, you don't see a language that is suggestive. You see a strong language of demand and command. Why? Because the father sees the value of this wisdom. He also notices the disadvantage of a son who doesn't listen nor pay attention, or who doesn't have any regard of the value of what he's sharing. And what usually happens is when you say to that boy, listen, don't go down that path. And then guess what he thinks? Just like Adam and Eve did. Well, he's just telling me don't go down that path because there's something good and he's just restraining me back. What is it he doesn't want me to see? That snake, the one that just bit you, and that was the result of that. He should have listened, right? So we want to adopt this wisdom that God has in Proverbs, just like sons and daughters to Heavenly Father who addresses us. So you notice he didn't just lightly say, don't do this or don't do that, but he says, be so far removed from it, don't even associate whatsoever with this kind of speech. And the people who do can't even have any way of associating with you. They want nothing to do with you, and you really don't want anything to do with them. I do think that in relationships, there's what's called healthy boundaries. There's healthy boundaries. I also believe that in a lifetime, you have friends that are for a lifetime, and you have people that's in your life for a period of time. And I don't think that you have to feel guilty because you don't force or pigeonhole or put a square into the round hole. You don't have to force that to be part of your life. You don't have to force people to be part of your life. See, really is, if I had to force my wife every day to be married to me, what kind of marriage would that be? If I have to make her guilty to stay with me every day, what kind of marriage is that? We'll be together. We'll have union, but we won't have unity. Have you ever tied a dog's tail and a cat's tail together? Oh, they have union, right? They don't have unity. They don't have unity. And so that's the wisdom here, is that we together see what God is saying here, is that we do not let this kind of speech come from us or be part of our lives whatsoever. God is telling us we ought to throw that as far off as we possibly can, that kind of speech should not be part of the speech of Christians. Did you know that words do hurt and words can hurt? Anybody think just maybe in my whole lifetime I've ever been in a fight? Anybody think that I might actually be in a situation where I was so proud and so prideful that I decided to go up to three men and say, I don't want one of you, I want all three of you? Anybody think that maybe, and they were probably at least a head taller than me, all three of them were. Anybody ever think that maybe they said yes? You ever seen a small fighting dog? He's just hoping to scare you enough. That day I wasn't. I really wanted to do that, and I did. You ever get in a fight with an octopus? Because there was fists and feet everywhere. I mean, I couldn't stop them. There were so many of them. It's probably, it's not a good calculation, okay? That's not what I call wisdom, okay? That's foolishness, and that's destructive. I didn't think about the consequences that I was about to embark on. My pride and my ignorance allowed me to do that. But let me tell you this. I was actually thrown in weeds until late or early morning. So I finally get to a mirror and I look at my face, and there was no white in my eyes at all, where they had kicked my temples so much that all around my eyes, both of them were just pure blood red. And that hurt, and I hurt bad. But I can tell you that I've had people's words cut me deeper and hurt me much more than that night. And the problem with that is, after a good week and you use a lot of alcohol and you try to clean up a little bit and you try to feel better and you rest it out and you do that, usually in a good week you're kind of over the majority of the soreness. Those words that hurt me even more and cut deep, they didn't feel better the week after. They still had their effects. And they still do. That's like the doctor was saying, is that words are powerful. And so many times when we have words that hurt us, it's amazing what our capabilities of human beings are, is that when we say something or we do something, and I don't think that this is sarcastic, nor do I think it's an excuse. We sometimes would accuse that, but there are things that I have said, or there's things that you have said, that if somebody brought that up, you say, I didn't say that, did I? I don't remember saying that. Me? Why? Because what you said didn't affect you. You were the one delivering the words. It wasn't targeted at you. You're the one with the bow and arrow. You're the one shooting. The target is what's going to get hit. So what happens to the person who gets hit? They automatically start pushing record. And you know what happens to the mind? And that's the spirit of our enemy. It's the spirit of Satan. Always wants that to be in our minds constantly, pushing replay and replay and replay, is that we record those things in our mind and we don't forget. And many times we replay those in our heart and in our mind that person said that. It amazes me that people who's been hurt can remember something that somebody said that hurt them for more than over 30 years. But you know what? Sometimes we're so lucid in our tongue that we wouldn't even remember, Ron, what I said to you last week and hurt your feelings. I don't even remember that. Why? Because I was careless in speaking it. Because I didn't take the time to concern about how I was going to affect that person by speaking those words. So you know what? When I'm so lucid and careless about my tongue, I have no thought process that even would allow me to remember anything that I spoke. And our Father is writing to us. And He's saying to you, sons and daughters, listen, pay attention, clean out your ears. He doesn't say, just don't do this. He says, run far from it. Push that so far out of your life that that's not even a facet of who you are. You see, the reality is when people are looking for cheerleaders, people know where to go, right? You can almost expect it. That when you get on social media and you say, oh, always be the world, oh, just everybody's picking on me. You can almost guarantee who's going to get on there and say, oh, you poor thing. I have to be honest with you. In ministry, the ones that really get close to you is the ones you got to watch out for. Isn't that a sad way of thinking? It's true. It's true. So when we start to really process and think about the words or the careless words or the power of our tongue and how that can cut or how that can hurt or even build up or inspire, let's take a little test that would help us. And how do we approach that to do better? First of all, it's the acronym THINK. T. Ask yourself, is this true? How many people have an ear for gossip? People know who's to go to gossip because they know who has an ear for gossip. People, listen, if you have an ear for gossip, you have a heart for hurt. You listen to me? Hurt people. But if you have a gossiping ear, or if you have an ear for gossip, you have a heart to hurt. Why do I say that? Because gossiping or listen to a truth that's not even true, you're not interested in the value or the validity of the words that's been spoken because you're carelessly going to grab this and go on with it whether it's true or not. Why? Because you know deep in your heart there's potential to criticize that character or to hurt that character. Anybody here has a right. I'm supposed to be going over to Colin right away, but I'll be late. If you want to stand in line and disagree with me and tell me why with the statement that I said, because I thought that statement to say that was very bold. Not as if I said it, the statement itself. That is a very risk-taking statement. That an ear for gossip is a heart for hurt. If you disagree with that, I would love to have conversation with you because I've been looking at that myself and I have yet to find any area where that doesn't stand to be true. Think about that. So you have to ask yourself, do I have an ear for gossip? Does people know that I have an ear for gossip? When people come to my house, do they know that this is the arena to just let it all out? Think, T, is it true? H, is it helpful? Now, for some of you know how to spell, you know that my next letter is I. Is it inspiring? Is it inspiring? You know, think the next letter, Jason, is N. I know you were really struggling with that. I can see the sweat on you're really thinking about which letter. You wanted to jump ahead, but you just possibly couldn't because you wasn't sure how to spell it properly. All you had to do is ask Heather. She had helped you out. But N isn't necessary. Does it have any necessity to my life, or does it have any necessity to me knowing? My life is an open book. It always has been. Good, bad, ugly. My life is an open book. But I can tell you that for cautious reasons, there's a lot of things that people don't know about me, and I don't tell them. There's a lot of things that people don't know about me, or things about me that I can't risk them knowing. Not that it's bad, I just want them to only know a limited of me from this moment on, because it's a danger. And so isn't it sad that you kind of have to back away and protect yourself? But I've learned that. I've learned that just in the last few years, that that's important. Should never be. You ever heard something? Well, I said it. Yeah, I told them. Was it necessary? Just because you said it, listen, you're not supposed to always say what you think. I'm learning that too. It's not valuable. Matter of fact, did you know, let me just inform you, did you know that most people really don't care what you think, and they never wanted to hear it anyway, but you had this misconception in your mind that everybody values my words and everybody really does care what I think, and you know what? That means everybody really wants to listen to what I got to say, because they don't. They don't. And the more you keep it up is the least that they want to hear from you. Are you listening? The more that you keep that kind of approach up. Why? Because they know that this combats to the instruction of their father. So pass that test. And then K is it kind? By the way, we're glad to have you here with us this morning. But I told Tina's friend that works with her, I said, I want you to know that Tina really is nicer at home. From being at school, I want you to know that my wife really is nicer when she gets home. She goes, Tina's so kind. Now, I don't know if she's trying to butter her up or butter me up. But when she said she's kind, I was like, well, maybe they get the better of Tina than I do. I know that they get more time with her than I do. But it's good to be known to be a person who's kind, and whose speech and words are kind and gentle and that are building up. The world doesn't have to taste your bitterness. The world doesn't have to taste your bitterness. Where those boundaries lie is, does that person bring the better out in you or the worse out in you? And that's, if it's the worst, then you build a boundary. Does that person bring the best out in you or the worst? You have to ask yourself those things. So Proverbs chapter 12 and verse 18 says, there is one who speaks rashly like the thrust of a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Have you ever seen someone who speaks so rashly, like it's penetrating to your heart and to your soul? But you look at someone who is wise. What do they have? They have the healing salve. To all of the pains and the hurts from that wound, they are there doing what? Helping put that salve on that sore so it starts to heal and get better. That is a wise person who brings words of healing instead of words of killing. If you had to put yourself in a category this morning, which category would you be in? Are you known for your positivity? Are you known for your bitterness? Does people look at you as I always said that sometimes it's like the deacons pass out in the church in plates. They pass out lemons to some of the members, and some of the members take it, because I'll tell you what, the way that they frown and look coming into God's assembly looks like they just bit into a big old lemon. Except for Bailey. She loves them. Goodness gracious. Last night she says, Papa, do we have any pickles? It's like, I don't know about it. So I found some of them, and those were strong, and so I bit into one. She had all 5 of them. She just loves that kind of stuff. But harsh words are like this sharp sword, as he's illustrating, that's thrust into every one of us. It's excruciating, especially when it comes from someone that we know or from someone that we least expect it. This weapon can be used against your husband. This weapon can be used against your wife. This weapon can be used against your kids, and it can be used against your parents. It can be used Christian to Christian. How many of you know people can hurt people verbally? The psalmist in Psalm 64, verse 3 says this, "Who have sharpened their tongues like a sword? They aimed bitter speech as their arrow." Think about this. There are times when you go to people, especially like people who are in services, they're serving people publicly. And many of you ever go to the counter, and I mean, these people really, really are bitter. They stick people behind the counter who hate people. Okay, can I help you? I've only said it twice, but I've thought it a whole lot. But I have said this. Forgive me for this. But I just go up there and yeah? So who peed in your Cheerios this morning? What is going on with you? What it is people are bitter, and they are so jealous of the fact that they're bitter that they want no one else to have a minute's peace or a minute's joy in their life, because they want people to be bitter like they are. So what do? They throw or they pull back to shoot the bitter arrow so you can be bitter. If you want to know if you're a grumpy person, I know where to go. I'm going to go ask your kids. How many think I'm right about that? Do you know why that's why I know I can go ask the kids? Because they'll be honest when nobody else in the world will. They'll tell you, he's always grumpy. I guess he just eats grump sandwiches all day. She's always negative. Oh, that's negative Nancy over there. Think about that. What are you known for? What are you known for? Now, don't misunderstand me. We're going to have moments of grumpiness, and we can have moments of that. That's not our character. That's out of character. But some of you, if you smiled, that would be totally a out of character moment. Listen, I'm going to say this because can you tell that I'm a little defensive when it comes to kids? I protect kids. I love kids. And I always protect them because I was a kid that grew up in trauma. There's something about kids that I have a heart of protection. And let me just say this. How dare you put your world of bitterness in the heart of your children? They don't want it. Stop feeding it to them and stop giving it to them. And you notice that we do that even in life, that we go to work and we can have such a bad day. If anybody in the world, now I'm not telling you this because I have it all put down pat. I mean, I'm not perfect. I know that's shocking. I didn't see Tina jump. Like, oh, you're not? I'll tell you what, my wife is not perfect. Did you know that? But I can tell you one thing that I'm convinced of. She did one perfect thing, even out of all her imperfections. She did one perfect thing. Being immersed into Christ. See, I know what you're thinking. But what we do is it's kind of like I've said this before. Young people, be careful of this because this will bite you if it hasn't already, okay? People want to build a circle. And they want to get as many people in that circle as they can. And what that circle does is that circle decides that they are in position to be right. Okay, they're right. It doesn't matter what they do, they're right. They're justified because they're right. Did you know sometimes you can do wrong and you're right? Do you know you can be right about something and totally do wrong things about it? We're all familiar with that. They try to get people in the circle so they can eat people outside that circle. They chew them up and spit them out. But then when nobody's coming around anymore, because it's just a matter of time, nobody will, not any decent or intelligent people, because it hurts. Then guess what happens to the people in that circle? They don't have anybody else to eat. And they start to eat themselves. And then you're left abandoned, isolated, and lonely. And the people outside that circle could have probably been a true friend or a close friend, but you just destroyed that by being condemned by association. And then the people within your circle ate you up and spit you out. And now you're lonely and hurt and devastated about the situation. You might think, well, that just seems like a little childish problem. That's how many wars were started. And that's how many people through history have died over things just that small. About power, precedence, being right. There's many people who have died and been slaughtered over that small little decision. And I don't think that you really understand the effects of your tongue and how many people are slaughtered in a year by those things that are piercing the hearts and killing the soul of God's people. So, Job 19:2 says, "How long will you torment me and crush me with your words?" How many people think that he was talking to, Job was talking to his enemies? Did you know that when we talk about, we have a delete button. When we speak it, we quickly delete it. But if somebody speaks it to us, we have a recording, and we play that back and play that back. Well, I just want to share with you this, and this is very serious. Matthew 12, verse 36 and 37 says, "But I tell you that every careless word that people speak, they shall give an accounting for it in the day of judgment. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will stand condemned." There's going to be a day of accounting for that. And it doesn't matter if you have 1 million people who justify your behaviors, or how many times you've deleted it and you want other people to delete it. God has a record of it. He knows exactly where you are and what you say and what you do so carelessly. We may be able to deny that we said something. Oh, I didn't say that. I didn't do that. You may be able to delete that account or that tweet, but God saw it one day, and He's going to remind you of it. because he has an account. In 2020, a family gathered in California to host a gender reveal party. This expectant mother was so excited about all the dynamics of this reveal party. The party, they had set off a pyrotechnical device to release pink or blue smoke to reveal yet to be born baby sex. Pink, it was a girl. Blue, it was a boy. As a result of the gender reveal announcement, a fire started. The El Dorado fire ended up burning over 20,000 acres, and it killed one firefighter. The intention was so small. The intention wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't anything to do with that. But you notice one little small action destroyed over 20,000 acres of land. James illustrates it like this. So also the tongue, it's just a small part of the body. And yet it boasts of great things. See how great a forest is set aflame by such a small fire? And the tongue is a fire, the very world of iniquity. The tongue is set among our members as that which defiles the whole entire body and sets the fire the course of our life, and it sets on fire by hell. Isn't it true that a few words that said, right, can change your whole reaction and action as a person? It's like a bridle the tongue. One little small bridle will literally direct a whole horse. It controls that horse. Just a small little part of the body is controlled. And it affects the whole body. It defiles you. You see, didn't Jesus say what comes out of your mouth is ultimately what was already in your heart? It's a deeper problem. So the fire may not have been set by a literal word, but it was set by a word expressed in an action, and it is a real and painful reminder of how careful we should be with our words. One area in which too many Christians forget about the biblical prerogative to be careful with our speech in social media. It isn't easy for us to dash off a hasty, ill-advised message, to demonize other human beings, or to share something as fact without even checking 1 minute to see if it's actually true. It's kind of like if Fox News says it, it's got to be true, right? If CNN says it, it's all a lie. But if Fox says it, it's true. It's true, I heard Fox say it. Anybody think that maybe both sides has a little twist of agenda? Once a rumor, bullying, or misinformation gets rolling on social media, it's just about as impossible to stop it. Too often we think about our freedom from censorship and declare our rights to free speech, but we forget our responsibilities and our disciplines from our Father. We can take care to carefully consider that our words spoken online are truthful, fair, respectful. When we mess up, we can apologize. And when someone calls us out of our speech, instead of being defensive, we can take the time to consider what they've said and see what God may be trying to teach us through the correction. Because here's what Proverbs 18:21 does say. It's beautiful. But things that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. You have a real problem with your heart if you like to bite and devour about people. You like to gossip about people and slander people, and you find that a very comfortable place. You really have to start with you and God and your heart. Matthew 15:18 says, "But the things that proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and it defiles the man." That righteous man, who has that kind of tongue, and that righteous man who has that kind of heart and that kind of speech, he'll walk right up and say, hey, you shouldn't be smoking. Why? Cause lung cancer. Now, do I know that smoking can cause lung cancer? Yeah, my mother died of it. It's true, what he said. But there's one thing that won't only bring cancer to your lung, but it brings cancer to your whole body. And that's your tongue. That's more devastating than lung cancer because it becomes eternal. So what type of seed am I producing in my life to others is what we should ask. I urge you not to be careless with your words. Speak life. It can turn away anger and bring peace. It is a display of true religion, ultimately bringing glory to our Father in heaven. So on the contrary of all of these things, the wise man speaks kindness. He is one who experienced the sword, and he knows how sharp the sword is. And in that pain that comes from the wound, and they also know now it's time to bring healing. You see, you already know how that works. You've been hurt. So what we should do as Christians or mature Christians, now let me say this, when I say mature Christians, I don't mean people who's been in church for 30 years. Because do I believe that people can be in the church for 30 years and still be at an elementary level? Absolutely. That's not who I'm talking about. Do I believe that we can have a Christian that's been 2-year Christian that's growing more maturely in the Word and in spirit than somebody that's been a Christian for 30 years? Yes. It's called application. So when I say that, when someone comes to us to slander or someone comes to us to gossip or someone... First of all, they shouldn't think about us having the ears that's open to that. But what should our position be? Now I've got an option. Here's my option. Do I jump on to be their cheerleader so we can be right and they can be left, they can be lost, they can be wrong? Or do I take Christ's position and say, look, this is wisdom. I know those things hurt you. But I'm going to take the position to the guy who has the salve. As I'm talking to you, I'm going to do my best to heal your wounds and put salve on those sores because I know how it feels. But I'm going to counsel you to do the right thing. God gives us so many opportunities to look at the church as shepherds or sheep, and sheep stink and do crazy things. And some of us Christians, we ought to be teaching the younger women. Older women should not have that ear of gossip and allow that. Or men, the same. We should be teaching young men that that's not proper. And the best way to do that, let's get together and solve this. Let's bring healing. What about Christ in these positions? Does Christ win? Oh, how blessed it is to the Lord to see his people dwell in unity. It blesses the Lord when his people can get along and not have such vicious against each other. I'm going to go through this real quick. He says in Proverbs 10:32, the lips of the righteous brings forth what is acceptable, but the mouth of wicked speaks what's perverted. Proverbs 16:24 says, pleasant words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. I guess you have to hear it once in a while, especially when you have the same preacher. But if there's one person that I know deeply, genuinely, spiritually, who has a kind heart, kind bones, and kind speech, is my wife. She speaks kindness. Kindness flows from her. I didn't say she was perfect, but her character is kindness. And that's an attribute. Why? Because somebody can come to her, some younger Christians can come to her, and they're going to get healing. They're not going to get a cheerleading squad. She's not going to join in that and she's not going to be intentionally hurtful. If you've ever, whether you're friends, family, or the church, if you ever thought my wife has ever been intentionally unkind, you got it wrong. You got it wrong. Because she's never been intentionally unkind. It's not in her. Now me, there's a pretty good chance. Just being honest. So you have to know people by their character, and you have to value that. You say, hey, you know, Dave, you said something the other day. It really bothered me. You hurt my feelings. You know, it's not like you to do that. There's one thing about stepping out of character, making a mistake and saying things. Or your character is just downright always nasty and always negative and always hurtful and always betraying and all those things. It doesn't surprise you. So think about this. In Proverbs 25:11, like apples of gold and setting of silver is a word spoken in the right circumstances. How pleasant that is to see when somebody can speak to me in the right circumstances. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Just in the last couple weeks, my intent wasn't to be hurtful. That wasn't my intent. Sometimes my demeanor or my speech doesn't match my intent. And so I said something to a brother, and it was harsh. You know what he did? He personally came over to my house. And it affected him. But you know what he did? He values my friendship at least enough to come over and make it right. And give me a chance to make it right. He didn't go off telling everybody else, he just hurt my feelings. He said, brother, it hurt my feelings. And I want to know why. I want to know what. I just want to know how, who, what do we need to do? We hugged. And we told each other that we love each other. You see, he values that enough to come and restore that. And I value that enough to be restored. Does that make sense? Because I thought I was right. But never to the cost or the expense of my friendship. Never. You see, that shows me that is an attitude and a spirit of a mature Christian. And you know something about that? I trust that friendship. And it seems like that as time goes by, I'm becoming a little bit more vulnerable every day with him. And do you know why? Not because he's special. Not because he's rich, because he's not. And definitely not because he's good looking. Because he brings salve with him. He didn't come to hurt. He came to heal. And we have a choice. So look through your latest social media post. Reflect on the things that you said. Do the things that they say, do they reflect truth? Are they respectful? Are they fair? How have you responded when someone's corrected you in front of, or you for your speech, with listening and prayer or defensiveness? Is there anyone you need to apologize to or for your behavior online or not online? He says in James 3, let not many of you become teachers, my brethren, knowing that such we will incur a stricter judgment, for we stumble in many ways. If a man does not stumble in what he says, he's a perfect man, able to bridle the whole body as well. Now, if we put the bits into the horse's mouth so that they will obey us, we direct the entire body as well. Look at the things also, though they are so great and are driven by strong winds, are still directed by very small rudder, wherever the inclination of the pilot desires, so also the tongue is a small part of the body, and yet it boasts of great things. See how great a forest is set aflame by such a small fire, and the tongue is a fire, and then you can go on. But in closing is this, James speaks of taming the tongue because of the power that it holds. He uses a number of illustrations from bridle of horses and rudder of a ship to show how something small has the power to direct something so big and so powerful. The words we speak can shape our life and the lives of those around us. And we need to be careful with the pain and healing that they can bring. Jesus has taken it even further, telling us one day we'll have to give an account for every careless words that we speak. So today, transforming the tongue starts with changing your heart. Let's stand, shall we?